Hi class, how's everyone doing? Good morning. I want to introduce something to our class which I'm going to call bi-weekly news cycle. This is supposed to be reminiscent of what I do during my usual semesters in class. Typically for the first 15-20 minutes of class, I have students come up to the board and write discussion questions or just a comment or critique on what is happening in the modern day. And so I would like for us to get back into the same type of rhythm and groove. I've been debating whether to make this graded or not. However, I've decided, just for the sake of my own sanity and because the class is very fast-paced and I do have other classes this semester, to make this not worth points, but I do want this to be fun and interactive and collaborative. So I will open up a discussion question sort of forum, or just a discussion board, not even questions, but a discussion board for our bi-weekly news cycle. And I would like for people to go in and comment whenever possible. If you have something in the news that you saw or would like to share, definitely put that in. I will go in twice a week, hence the bi-weekly part, and go in to comment and critique on some of the articles that you've all posted up. And on top of that, perhaps put up my own, articles and videos and things that I've seen. So this is not going to be mandatory by any sense. I understand a few of you might, see this video and just say, well, I'm not going to do it. However, if you want the most out of the class, and to have a little bit more interaction, I would highly recommend to get into, our bi-weekly news cycle. It's fun, it's interactive. We can all collaborate and comment on each other's posts. Obviously, please make it civil and respectful. We are all in this together, so please no, hatred or back and forth, nasty talk. Right? I want this to be civil conversation, but engaged intellectual conversation. So. Some of the things that I'm going to post up in the first kind of video / introduction to the bi-weekly news cycle are some of these articles and discussions. And I'll post the links right below the video that I'll post inside of the module that I'll create. But here's some examples of things we can talk about. New Jersey City disbanded its police force. Here's what happened next. Some of the cities around the United States have looked at their police departments and measured it carefully and have determined that it is easier to disband the entire police force and build it back up from the ground and have people reapply to the police force instead of perhaps going through with a fine comb and trying to kind of weed out the bad apples. And so it's interesting to see some of these cities implement these policies, and it is an interesting conversation about overall general community policing, right? And how these police departments and their unions and the entire bureaucracy sometimes can be a little stagnant, right? And difficult to work with. We could have, let's say, something like this from the LA Times. Alarmed by spiking coronavirus numbers, here's why officials insist they aren't worried. So perhaps we can have a discussion on the rise of LA coronavirus trends. In the past week or two, as I've been going to, Trader Joe's and shopping for food and just the usual stuff, I'm wearing my mask, but I've definitely noticed that there has been an increase in people kind of not caring. Yesterday, I went to pick up food from a restaurant. I got some sushi, and there was a bunch of folks inside, right, kind of dining, but it was, there's a lot of people inside the restaurant, but all of them did not have any of their masks on. So, I don't know. I felt a little weird walking in with my mask, but no one had their mask on. And so, it turns into like a peer pressure situation of just like, should I keep my mask on? Should I not? Am I going to be weird for doing this? So, it's definitely something to think about and consider. For those of you interested in more international politics, China and the United States have been, going into a slugging match, right? As far as diplomacy goes. Here we have China overshadows nuclear treaty talks between the United States and Russia. And so China is having a much greater expansive role in international politics and has started to flex out and muscle out the United States within the region of China. Obviously, they are a growing hegemonic power. Their military expanding. They have the largest population in the world. So obviously, things are going to change in that region and dynamics are going to shift. So if the United States is being smart and keen enough, they will see the trend and perhaps not attempt to be the big player in the region anymore, because there's a certain amount of strategy when it comes to costs for your dollars, right? So I do not believe that perhaps the United States pouring money and military and investment in that region of the world would be as fruitful as perhaps other areas. But that is definitely a discussion for us to have. Speaking of US and China, they, over the last few months, have been getting into an increasing new Cold War. Over the last few months, even before the entire COVID situation unfolded, the United States has been getting into a trade war with China. Trump was renegotiating all of their tariffs and deals into the hundreds of billions of dollars. There was various conversation of how much should the United States be reliant on Chinese production and manufacturing, and that we should bring manufacturing back home into the United States. China itself has began flexing its muscles in the Southeast Chinese Sea, and the United States, especially Japan, our ally, and South Korea, have been asking for additional U.S. support to check and balance Chinese aggression. And so it's definitely been right in the news. And the last major thing before the COVID news situation kind of unfolded was the Hong Kong protests. The United States and many Western journalists were absolutely scathing against the Chinese government and their brutal put down, right, of the Hong Kong protesters. And so after the COVID situation unfolded and the rest of the world started to look at China, and if you watch any videos or on YouTube, right, or read any articles online or through social media or anything else, some folks, especially down the conspiracy theories, are like, this was created in a China lab and released, etc. Other reports say that, it's because of, let's say, unsanitary conditions in their wet markets with bats. But whatever the case might have been, the lens has been fixed upon China as far as international relations go, right? And so even China themselves right now, they're dealing with an extreme situation because they do have the largest population in the world. And so if they would have potentially a biological outbreak, that could mean disaster for them. And so they have to implement very, very strict policies against such a thing. So definitely something for us to get into as far as the next few weeks go. Donald Trump, he is always a fan favorite in my class. I would like to point out what happened here. So during one of his recent speeches, he ended up making a joke / kidding remark on testing. And so he was at the rally where he loves to shine and kind of, beat his fist and say various things, right? And say, the economy is good. It's so good. We're going to win. Sleepy Joe, he ain't got a chance, right? Or whatever he's going to say. And so he jokingly / kiddingly, I suppose, said that, the testing is increasing in the United States, but obviously as we're increasing testing, new cases are going to come out. And then his joke was, like I told my administration, you just got to slow down the testing. Just stop testing people. The numbers are too high, or something to that effect. And so there's two sides to the coin. The conservative response and the liberal response. So the conservative response to this is going to be, he was just joking, obviously, right? This is a, joke. Have some sense of humor. The liberal response to this as far as CNN goes, is going to say, well, this has been an admission of guilt and an admission of his incompetence and negligence as far as the virus goes. So you can go one of two ways here. Speaking of Trump, he recently was supposed to have a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and his stadium was pretty much empty. There was almost nobody there. And so he has, reportedly been very furious, right, at his aides for the thousands of empty seats that he saw. And he did not even end up walking out into the rally. I suppose he got upset that it was not full enough for him to appear. So definitely something to consider moving forward. And so I've seen two sides of the argument here as well in the last few hours. The liberal side has been that obviously people are not going to show up at the rally because of the coronavirus. People are scared and they want to stay home. The conservative viewpoint here was that, well, K-pop stars and TikTokers and YouTube influencers were buying out all of the tickets and seats and therefore trying to purposefully snub Donald Trump in his campaign. Both sides. But either way, the man is an interesting myth and legend. And finally, for all of you comedy enthusiasts, Dave Chappelle recently had a special, I guess, quote unquote. It was less of a special and more of a kind of from the heart discussion. But for free on YouTube, he released 846, a Netflix special that he had, and he ended up kind of talking and detailing about all of his experiences, all of his thoughts, on the George Floyd case. An incident, and the causes, the effects, the repercussions, how we should feel, how he feels, and so it is a very left-leaning liberal viewpoint onto what was going on and how he feels the police departments and race relations in America is truly unfolding. And he also blasted Candace Owens in his special. For those of you who do not know who Candace Owens is, she is a conservative African-American political pundit and voice, and she made a video recently, which is this one on YouTube, in a response towards what Dave Chappelle said and what her recent comments have been towards the George Floyd case. Dave Chappelle says, obviously, as far as California and everyone in the left-leaning political spectrum, George Floyd, the entire incident with George Floyd was uncalled for. The police officer was obviously extremely egregious, and nobody deserves to die under those type of terrible circumstances. And Candace Owens, the conservative side, she says, yes, I agree, nobody should die under those terrible circumstances. However, she does critique the fact that the African-American community, for some reason, is glorifying George Floyd and his death, gave millions and millions of dollars to his family, and buried him in a gold casket when he had multiple criminal records. And so she has an interesting conservative viewpoint onto perhaps what the African-American community in America wants, where should they go moving forward, as does Dave Chappelle, right, on kind of the liberal front of essentially, Dave Chappelle is giving the comment and argumentation of we need to have police reform, Black Lives Matter, white-black race relations in America is getting uglier and uglier, but at least all of you are finally seeing it. The conservative viewpoint here is all of this media-based conversation of race is not helping anybody. We need to look at our own homes, our own actions, our own community, etc. And she throws out a bunch of statistics on police brutality and deaths, etc. So two sides of the same coin, but very interesting to discuss. So, this is a first attempt, an introduction of the bi-weekly news cycle. I am not sure how this is going to go or how the response is going to be from my classes. So please let me know if this is something that is, you're interested in, or if it's working, or whether you just don't have the time and you do not want to see any more of this. Please let me know. I believe that it can be a nice, interactive, cathartic experience for all of us in the comment sections, in class in our Canvas shell. And so I want this to be something we are doing moving forward. And sometimes I'll, I guess just post, articles, right? And kind of maybe a small paragraph below, kind of detailing what it's talking about and what my opinions are. Perhaps just make a video such as this in the future, but in whatever way, shape, or form, try to interact if you can. It'll be fun. It'll be something other than history, right, that we can talk about. And so hopefully it'll be a little bit more interactive and, make your classroom experience this summer that much better. So with that, I just want to thank you for watching my video as always, and I will see you next time.